Hi everyone, I'm going to continue with the instructor critiques on this section, starting with Ching. Okay, Ching, I have looked over your ads a little bit. Overall, I really like what you have done with them. Um, the thing that I did notice about this ad is they have a lot of widened kerning here. Um, I think you have maybe a little bit on yours, but not as much as theirs. You can notice it more on theirs because their font size is a little bit smaller. Your copy exists kind of in the same space as theirs though, so maybe that's why you made yours a little bit bigger, is because you wanted it to kind of match the sizing on the page. And I like that idea, but I may consider just increasing a little bit that kerning a little bit more and decreasing the size of this a little bit more as well. Um, I think usually one of the mistakes we make is that when we're designing something, we forget that it's still going to be pretty legible down to a small size when it's actually printed. And so feel free to make that a little bit smaller than you might think you're able to. Okay, but otherwise it's looking really great. I love it a lot. I would probably decrease the stroke on this line. It's a little bit too thick comparatively, but overall it's looking great. Let's glance down here. I really love this slide. I love the contrasting typography you have, the color you have. It looks really nice. However, these two I feel like are still looking a little bit amateur. I would introduce some of this contrasting typography on this slide probably. And then I think this looks a little bit abrupt to have the purple end right here when you have the image on the page as well. So I would either suggest making the purple go all the way across the page, or perhaps ending it on the third line here, the rule of thirds. But then you might have a bit of difficulty getting your typography to fit your copy that you need to have to getting it to fit with a smaller text box. But I don't love this overlap, how these two shapes kind of work against each other a little bit. Down here looks nice. Make sure they're actually aligned. They look a little bit off. Okay, see how if you follow that line down, you're probably going to cut into the B, and then make sure it's really truly aligned up here too. So just make sure you have a nice crisp alignment. The logo looks really good where it is though, so you can leave that logo. And I might play around with either decreasing this size or adding a little bit of variety of sizing in it. I do like how you have running down here on its own line though. That's creative. So play around a little bit more with your shapes and perhaps a little bit more with the typography if you're going to have these blank slides. I would probably center this word a little bit more in your box. Pull it down a little bit more so it's kind of existing right in the middle of this horizontally, okay? And then probably do the same thing here, and I'd maybe scoot typography so it's not quite so close to the edge. All right, you are off to a great start though. It's looking really good, especially your ads, so just continue to refine your slide design, all right? Joe, you opted in. Okay, let's me glance real quick and see if you uploaded any slides. Okay, it just looks like it's the ad. Okay. So this is the original. Okay, I would look, one of the things it's really pixelated too. I'm not sure if you saved it as a small size. I mean, your letters aren't super pixelated, but the images, both of them are really pixelated, and the Pepsi logo. So that makes me think you probably saved it on a small DPI. Maybe you saved it on a lower DPI, and so it's really pixelated. I'm not sure, but we definitely need to make sure the final isn't like that. when you look for a Pepsi logo, I would recommend going in and trying to find one that has a transparent background. You can even do a search for that, Pepsi logo, transparent background, or usually if you can find a ping of the logo, those will automatically have a transparent background. So look around for one of those. Ping is .png as a file type. And then it'll be placed on the page and look a little bit more professional instead of that white box around it. Sophia looks a little bit too stretched out in this, I think. So I would work on that a little bit. I don't know if maybe she was, when you were manipulating and playing around with her, maybe accidentally clicked and dragged a corner without holding shift. And so I would just try to make her look a little bit more proportional to this original one. Well, maybe it's proportional. Maybe you're just zoomed in a lot. Just double check. I can't quite tell. It looks like she's a little bit stretched, but she might not be. Okay? So just double check. And then the other thing I would say is your font doesn't feel like it really is inspired by this original ad. So on the original ad, it's hard for me to tell since it's so small. But I mainly see this nice, crisp, modern sans serif that matches the Pepsi can. And on this one, instead, this feels a little bit more youthful, a little bit more playful, but not necessarily in a way that matches the Pepsi brand. So I would probably try to find a font that's more similar to the one of the Pepsi brand and use that, and then have it placed on the page in a way that's similar to this. So see how they have a nice box of copy, and copy, is just another word for the writing that you have on the ad, but they have something that's smaller here and then the actual product, and it's aligned right and aligned left, justified within the paragraph box, okay? So it looks nice and modern and crisp because of that. So I would definitely try to do something like that. If you want to keep the logo or the slogan you've come up with, I'm fine with that. You could have refreshing as a summer night, Diet Pepsi or something. And if you want to, you could even pull out a color that's more in here. You probably pulled out the red from the logo. Maybe you're worried the white wasn't going to show up on this blue, which I can understand that. But here's an idea. You could put it down here on the black sand, and then when you have that nice Pepsi logo, you could put it up here in this corner or over in this corner. Okay, and this does definitely look stretched as well. It's because the Pepsi logo should be a circle, and instead it's a really, really wide oval. Okay, so make sure you have that as well. So just keep on playing around with it. I think the two images work together. So continue to kind of refine some of your type selections. It also has this information down here in the bottom, which maybe you could place that underneath your logo or on her dress or something. Some place where it can play around with it. If you can find a good place for it, it'll help it feel more cohesive. If you can't, it's not a deal breaker. Okay? So just keep on working on those, Joe. Hopefully that's some food for thought. Okay? David, I do not think you opted in. Did email me about that, so I've seen that one recently though. Dixie, you did. Okay, Lego ad ref draft. Legos. Harder to work with than you thought. Okay. Original ad. Ooh, that's cool. Pure brain food. Okay, I really like your idea, but on this one, I totally get it looks like, an egg over easy on a bed of kale. But yours more looks like you're just recommending someone to eat Legos. It doesn't look like food to me yet. Okay, so maybe you need to, and I don't know if you have these all selected individually or if this is something you've already found and made a selection on. So that's going to make it tricky. Plus these Legos look too big. Okay, I would constrain them down because in proportion, I have a lot of Legos in my house, and these are like ginormous Legos compared to what I think they should be proportionally compared to the plate. Okay, so maybe when I look at this, I almost think this looks like it could be a piece of pizza. So if you can select some of these Legos individually and make it just come to a point down here, and then maybe you have shapes on the piece of pizza, or maybe you could do something with spaghetti. It just needs to look more like food. Right now it just still really looks like large Legos. So continue to work on that. That is definitely challenging. And then one thing I've noticed on a lot of the ads is we feel like we need to make the typography and the logos bigger, but that's not true. When you look at a magazine ad, if you're really interested, you'll look at the small font too. Okay, so you can make this a little bit smaller and this a little bit smaller as well. Let's glance at, see if you uploaded any slides. I don't see any slides yet, over here at least. And this one I do notice the selection, it got a little rough right here. There was probably some white coloring on this Lego, and so it has eliminated that actual Lego dot. So I would just make sure that's selected if you use this one as like a chunk of bread or something. Okay, so you're heading in the right direction. I like where you're going with it. Just continue to try to refine. And since I don't know what you're actually working with when it comes to what the original Photoshop image looks like, hopefully you have a little bit more flexibility so you can make it look a little bit more like food. Okay? Let's see. I'm going to scroll down and see. Okay, it doesn't look like you have uploaded your slides. So you're off to a good start. Just keep on working on that food. Okay, thanks, Dixie. All right, David, Kristine. Kristine, you opted in. Aw, I like this ad. We're studying cats and in our little homeschool project this week, and so we're going to go to the Humane Society, so this makes me smile. Okay, so this is, I'm assuming, the original ad, which looks really nice, and then here is your spin-off. Speak Mind to Mind. Okay, now I got to go back and look at the original. Adopt. Okay, overall it's really good. I would probably, the only thing that feels a little amateur to me is this font for some reason. It might be because it's too big, or maybe there's not enough written there to warrant the super huge quotation marks. So I might try to make a little bit more content. Let's see. Yeah, I think I try to give it a little bit more content here. And then the original has this nice crisp white right alignment with the white body copy. And I didn't get that right off the bat on yours. Okay, it's here, it's just a little bit too small. I would pull it down so it's a little bit closer to adopt. It feels like it's floating a little bit too much in its own space. And then I'd probably bold it so it becomes a little bit more legible. Right now I don't find it as legible as the original. Okay, and see how it's in closer proximity to the adopt. So this looks like it's all grouped together. And then it has a name and when this little guy was adopted. And I would add that here too, the name and when this kitty was adopted. Okay. You have some good pulled out elements to the ad, and I would probably consider maybe doing a little bit of a draw over although I want to be able to see this ad without the draw over at some point, but since you're pulling out these elements, it might be nice to have a little bit of a draw over on here. I think this color scheme works. I may consider making the background black, perhaps, to help your ads pop a little